Hi, I'm Dr. Rosanna Gray-Swain. I work with the BJC medical group at West End OB-GYN. And over the next couple of minutes, I hope to share with you a little bit of a personal story, the story of my breastfeeding journey. Not because my story is particularly heroic, but just the opposite, because it was really quite ordinary. But what we tend to see in social media today and the stories that we hear tend to be end of the spectrum stories. The amazing woman that made 6 gallons of breast milk a day, or the woman whose baby had to go back to the NICU because it got dehydrated. And the truth is, most of our breastfeeding stories lie between those two. And that's where mine falls, and I want to share that with you in hopes that for some other moms who are struggling in those first few weeks of breastfeeding, feeling like their story's not okay, that it's not right, that it's not normal, feel a bit reassured. So I waited till I was older to have children. I wasn't ever really sure that I wanted to have children as an adult, but I knew that if I did have kids, I was gonna breastfeed and I was gonna love it. And that was something that I just sort of always knew and took as a given. I grew up in the late 70s and early 80s in Tennessee, and all my mom's friends breastfed. She breastfed myself and my sister for many years. And I saw breastfeeding. It was my norm. It was my reference for how you feed kids. And everyone seemed to really like it and enjoy it. And as I got older and started talking about having children with my mom, she recounted breastfeeding as one of the most blissful times of her life with us as small kids. She loved it. She was good at it. She actually made enough milk. She donated to the NICU at Vanderbilt. And she talked about getting this sort of release of oxytocin when she would sit down to breastfeed, and this relaxation and this bonding. And that sounded pretty wonderful, and so I just knew that I would love that. I also thought I'd be pretty good at it since I came from good genetic breastfeeding stock, and I'm an OB-GYN, so I have an insider's view on the physiology. And at times I actually looked forward to breastfeeding more than I did giving birth. And so finally the day came to meet my daughter after 40 weeks and 6 days. She was a little tardy. And there was a long labor, not terribly bad, but pretty long. And I was lucky. I gave birth in a wonderful atmosphere at Barnes Jewish Hospital, surrounded by love and support, and my husband. Dr. Turner was my doctor. I trusted her. I had all the confidence in the world in her. And my daughter was born, and it was perfect. She was little and tiny and warm, and she came right to my chest just like I expected her to, and I had planned that to be our first step on our breastfeeding journey, was that skin to skin, and it was perfect. She needed a little jump start to remind herself to breathe, but then we went right back to skin, and then she latched on in the first hour, just like was supposed to happen. But it didn't quite go right. I didn't feel that lightning bolt of love and bliss. I didn't feel like I suddenly understood my purpose on the planet like I thought I was supposed to at this moment, and it kind of hurt. But she did a good job. She nursed for 10 minutes, and then she came off, and then I had a huge blood blister on my nipple. So now I wasn't really feeling what I thought I should feel towards my daughter, and I had this physical pain, and all in those first few moments I felt like this breastfeeding story wasn't going quite right. And then over the next few days it got worse. The pain got worse. It got pretty excruciating, actually. I dreaded every feed, which was every 2 hours around the clock, as is normal for a newborn. I remember gritting my teeth and pushing my feet into the floor to try to distract myself from the pain in my nipples. We tried everything. I knew something was wrong. I knew I could fix it. I knew something was wrong with her or with me, and we'd figure it out and get through this. We bought every salve in the world. We had salves compounded. I tried cabbage leaves, cold compresses, massage, everything, it seemed like, in the world. I took medicines to increase my milk supply because I was sure if I had more milk, she would nurse less often, so at least then I'd have pain less frequently. None of it made a difference. It really hurt, and it hurt a lot. And I didn't like it. I kind of hated it, and I felt really guilty about that. I wanted to like it. I was supposed to like it, and I didn't. And I loved my baby, but I didn't like this breastfeeding thing, and that made me feel really sad and really inadequate. And it made me worry that we weren't going to bond like we were supposed to bond. And I would sit and nurse her, and sometimes tears would just run down my face. I wasn't even really aware I was crying, but I'd have to wipe them off of her. And that just made me feel worse. I wanted to be showering her with love, and I had imagined I'd be reading fairy tale stories to her in one hand while she blissfully breastfed in the other, and it was all I could manage to do to get her on and just hold myself together. And then I was drowning her in my tears. And I didn't know what to do. I was home alone a lot. My husband was in school and worked at night. My mom was out of state. My best friend was somewhere else. Thank goodness I was able to talk to her at times and get some message that this was okay, this was normal, it's hard, but it's normal. Because I kept thinking something wasn't normal. There was something wrong with our story. And I was lucky, I persevered, I had enough support to get me through it, and it got better. A little bit better here, it hurt a little bit less there. She got better at latching, then it got pretty good. I didn't hate it. That felt like a pretty big accomplishment. And then it got really great, and it got easy, and that took time and perseverance. And then when it got easy, I looked back, and then I still felt guilty because I hadn't liked it, and I had wanted to like it, and why didn't I like it? And I struggled with that for a long time. After my breastfeeding journey with my daughter, I gave birth to my son, and I went into it with a lot of anxiety about breastfeeding and fear that the story might repeat itself and I'd have to go through all those feelings of guilt and struggle again. And I got really lucky. We had a totally different breastfeeding story. It was much easier. I was much calmer. He did a great job, and I didn't have those same feelings of guilt. But in a way, that then made me feel even more guilty about my experience with my daughter at first. And so that was another challenge. So each breastfeeding story has its own struggles, brings up its own emotions, and it's different each time. And although it wasn't perfect with my daughter, I like to say we were not a perfect breastfeeding dyad, it was what it was. She tried the best that she could. I tried the best that I could, and we made it through it. And then I had another experience with my son that was glorious in a different way. So to all those moms out there who have an experience where you're feeling like it's not going well, you feel like your story is not right, something is abnormal, I hope that my story will give you a little glimpse that normal can be imperfect, and that is okay. And your story is often probably normal. It is okay to not like breastfeeding all the time. You will still be a wonderful mother, and your baby will still know your love.